Welcome to Science Kids. Today we will see how different elements on the periodic table are related. But first, let's do an experiment to see if elements on the left side of the periodic table are more reactive than the ones on the right.
What you will need for today's experiment:
Hydrochloric acid,
carbon rods,
magnesium metal strips,
calcium metal,
aluminum foil,
a graduated cylinder,
4 test tubes,
safety goggles, and latex gloves.
and make sure you're with a parent or adult. And most importantly, safety first. As you can see, we have the 4 test tubes full of hydrochloric acid. First, we're going to test calcium. As you can see, the calcium reacts with the hydrochloric acid, making bubbles. The reason for the bubbles is because when the calcium reacts with the hydrochloric acid, it releases a gas, hydrogen gas. Another interesting thing about this reaction is that it releases energy in the process, making its surroundings much warmer. This is called an exothermic reaction.
After we tested the calcium, we tested the aluminum to see what would happen. As you can see, at first the aluminum doesn't react with the hydrochloric acid, so we'll just come back to it later. Anyways, let's move on to the magnesium. As we can see, as soon as the magnesium hit the water, it started to react instantly. This reaction is very exothermic and it creates a lot of heat in the test tube. And the gas coming from this reaction is just hydrogen gas.
Now you see carbon being dropped into hydrochloric acid. It may look like the two are reacting, but they are not. It's just air trapped in the carbon rods that is being released inside the hydrochloric acid. So there is no reaction going on between these two.
Finally, let's get back to the aluminum reaction. This was a slower reaction, but it eventually started to react. As we can see, the aluminum is starting to dissolve in the hydrochloric acid and create heat as it is an exothermic reaction. It is also producing hydrogen gas.
So today we learned that magnesium and calcium, circled in the picture, are more reactive than aluminum and carbon, with boxes around them in the picture. This is telling us that elements on the left side of the periodic table are more reactive than elements on the right.
So to recap, the elements on the left side of the periodic table are the most reactive. This is because the number of valence electrons in the element is very low. The reactivity of an element also depends on the structure of the atom. As you move over to the right side of the periodic table, the elements become less reactive, like aluminum, and the carbon has no reaction because it is a nonmetal. There's a lot you can learn about an element by looking at where it is placed on the periodic table. For example, I can look at oxygen and tell it's a gas, and that is very reactive. Or I can look at magnesium and I know that it is a metal and it bends easily or is malleable. I know this because elements to the left of the transition metals, the elements in the pink, tend to be metals that are malleable, which means soft and very reactive. The only element left of transition metals that is not a metal is hydrogen. Hydrogen belongs to the nonmetals, but is still very reactive. You may be wondering what the numbers at the top of the periodic table and the ones to the left do. The ones at the top tell you the group number, and the ones to the left tell you the period. The group number tells you how many valence electrons an element has, and the period tells you the number of energy shells. An energy shell is placed where the electrons move around. As seen in the picture, there is a maximum of 2 electrons in the first energy shell, 8 in the second, and valence electrons are the number of electrons in the last energy cell. You can find the total number of electrons by looking through the atomic number. The atomic number is the number above the element's symbol. The symbol is the 1 or 2 letters that are used to recognize an element. The periodic table was invented by Russian chemist Dmitry Mendeleev. Its original form looks like this. The table now is divided into many different sections, but let's start with the halogens. Halogen means salt producing. When the halogens react with metals, they produce a lot of salt. Now the noble gases are a bit different. These are odorless, colorless, and have very low reactivity. The alkali metals of the periodic table have their outermost electron in an s orbital. This configuration results in their characteristic properties. These metals are all shiny, soft, and highly reactive. Next we have the alkaline earth metals. These are similar to the alkali metals, but not the same. They are all shiny, silvery white, and reactive. Metals take up most of the periodic table. Finally, metalloids. These are elements that have properties in between metals and nonmetals. They have a metallic appearance and are very brittle. They behave mostly as nonmetals. So that's all of them. Now let's talk some more about atomic numbers and atomic mass. The atomic number of an element tells the number of electrons and protons in the element. The atomic mass of the element shows the mass of the atom. On the table, it is listed under the element's abbreviation. Well, that's all we have for today, kids. We'll see you next time on Chemistry Kids.